Redditors with real life butterfly effect stories. What happened and what was the series of events and outcomes? TL.DR. I overdrafted and caused 4 marriages and 5 babies. Longer version. I was just out of high school and new in town with no job. I was living off what savings I had left and my account went below zero without me knowing. I was overdraft charged like 10 times and owed $300 plus. I went down to the bank, spoke with a teller, and she ended up being a lifesaver. She worked with me and got all the charges removed. On top of getting the charges removed, we got to talking about my situation and she said that her son worked at a local restaurant and she would help me get a job. She was a woman of her word and by the end of the week I was working full time. Fast forward. I meet a cool dude who worked there. We became friends. I introduced him to my sister. They fell in love, got married and had 2 kids. His best friend came into town for the wedding and I introduced him to my roommate at the time. They fell in love, got married and had 2 babies. I also got my best friend a job at the restaurant where he met a girl working there. They fell in love, got married and had a kid. Right before I left I got my roommate a job at the restaurant where he met a customer. Fell in love, got married and had a kid. As a bonus, my best friend, who I helped get the job, repaid the favor and got me a job at a different restaurant where I met a girl, fell in love and got married. Pregnant cousin usually takes the bus at around 5:10 p.m. after work. She was about to hop inside the bus but she needed to pee really badly and the commute is about an hour long, so she decided to go to the restroom instead and just catch the next bus. That 5:10 bus ended up falling from a cliff. I was walking to school and got distracted by a hedgehog that ran in a bush next to me, then a big ass tree branch fell in front of me. Would have crushed me if I didn't get distracted by a spiky little mouse scurrying in the bushes. I gave him a dead cricket the next day. He took it and ran off. Godspeed, spiky mouse. I procrastinated one day in high school by watching a foreign musical on YouTube. I ended up trying to learn the lyrics and eventually the language. That led me to discovering the field of linguistics, which I'm now majoring in. I don't know what I'd be doing now had I actually started doing my homework that day instead. When I was 18 I had a girlfriend, and her older brother owned a small company. He said to me, "You know, I think you'd be pretty good at this job." I'm 34 now, and have a legitimate career that I love because I dated a girl for a bit. I also had a cat for the better part of that time period because of the girlfriend. I'm a cat person now. Almost everything that has happened in my life for the past 8 years is a direct result of me literally flipping a coin to decide between 2 colleges. I play the sport I do, have the friends I do, am dating the person I am, and very nearly every other aspect of my life is because the nickel landed on heads. At the end of 6th grade, my class took a field trip on a whale watch. That night, I saw a commercial for a documentary TV series on whales. Ever since that day, I wanted to grow up and protect whales from being hunted. Today I work in the military specializing in marine preservation. I'm alive because my aunt was born. My grandfather was conscripted into the Romanian army as a medic, and his unit was one of the many acting as a defensive barrier, covering the Nazi supply lines to Stalingrad. She was born, and he was called back to Bucharest from the front. While he was on leave, the Russians launched Operation Uranus, which decimated the Axis forces. He received word that his unit had been completely destroyed. He was never reassigned, and in 1948, my mother was born. I'm also alive because a bunch of Romanian cows got sick. My other grandfather was a pharmacist. Back when that meant actually making medicines. He was also a Jew. The town he lived in was largely agrarian, and their cow herds came down with some illness that was killing them. He whipped something up that cured them. The townspeople were very grateful to him. So grateful that when the chief of police heard that the Nazis were coming to town to take inventory of who lived there, he came to my grandfather's house with some train tickets for him and his wife. They escaped the Nazis and never got caught. My father was born at the end of 1945. I guess this is the opposite of the butterfly effect. Really. Rather than one small action blowing up into a much more important chain of events. two hugely improbable events are eventually lead to my birth, and obviously my extended family as well. And now, I run ads on the internet. Got arrested for growing weed. Moved back home. Got first job I could at IKEA. After working there for over a year. Randomly decided to check Craigslist for jobs and saw an opening at a cafe and they were hiring right then. So instinctively went for it. The cafe was connected and owned by one of the most popular brewpubs beer gardens in the area. They hired me to host there. Quickly worked my way up the ranks to eventually bar manager. Met girl of my dreams. We are now married with 2 amazing kids. Opened 2 more restaurants with them and currently assistant director of operations. Overseeing 3 restaurants at 3, 5, and 8 million a year in sales. Love my job. Love my family. Love my life. No idea what I'd be doing if I never got arrested. Or never applied for the cafe job. My dad raised me to be highly competitive. One day in junior high I tried out for a play but didn't get in. Then I saw on the bottom of the cast list that they were looking for a student director to help out. I wasn't particularly interested. But another girl saw it at the same time as me and she did want it. I wanted to beat her. So we both applied and I got it. Long story short, I was a theater director for 15 years and have started directing films now, though now I prefer to write. All because of how competitive I am. Went to a soccer match on a Thursday night in August 2010. After years of turning down invites from multiple groups of friends. But this time it was for someone's birthday and they gave me a ticket. So I said WTH okay. Fell in love with my local team. I had watched soccer in HS and college and of course the World Cup. But this was different. I rekindled friendships from years before through our mutual support of said team. Made new friends. Experienced new things because of friends and team. Drank more than I usually did. In January 2016 I got laid off from a job I had grown to hate after 8 years and a lot of rounds of layoffs. Just waiting for my number to get called. That March I was getting antsy and bored at home because I was trying to save money while still looking for work and decided to get off my couch and go to an off-season supporters group meetup, which I usually don't like to do because I'm not good at the social skills. And if I hadn't been unemployed I know I would not have gone. But that night I met the woman I instantly knew I was going to fall in love with. Got a new job. Quit drinking. Finally went on a date with her 6 months after beating her. Figured out I hated the new job. Quit that job. Moved to her city 35 minutes south in 2017 and have been working odd jobs part-time and doing gig economy stuff. I moved in 6 months later. We had a puppy magically fall into our lives within 3 days of just talking about maybe getting a dog. And it's my first dog ever and I am so happy about it. Got engaged. Got married in December and I'm so happy about it. She kept telling me Reddit was actually good. I actually signed up. I saw this post. I replied. Hi. We also just got a kitten. Edit. Proof of cute kitten. Dorky dog. High school. I didn't get into the AP history class wanted. Changed up my schedule. Including a different gym class. Without everyone I knew. I was heartbroken. I really wanted to teach. And without an AP class senior year. I was screwed. Made a new friend in gym class. Who was wearing a volunteer firefighter shirt. He had just joined. Seemed interesting. And he invited me to check it out. They paid for me to get my EMT. Fell in love with healthcare. Fast forward quite a while. And I'm an ER nurse and precept students and new nurses. Teaching them how to survive in the ER. I also do public outreach and injury prevention. And I love it. Glad I missed out on my class. My mother had a deaf friend in middle school for about a week until she moved. She had learned a couple of signs in the alphabet to communicate with her. Had me a few years later and taught me what she knew. My middle school and high school had large deaf populations, so I communicated with them with what I knew from my mom. It really fascinated me, decided I wanted to interpret. Took ASL in high school. And eventually went to one of the 3 schools in the country to offer studies in interpreting ASL. Met my partner. Moved in with him and his family. And now here I am. No longer majoring in ASL. But because my mom met a deaf girl in 5th grade. I went to my school, met my partner, and found what I really want to do. Was pretty lost after graduating university. Ended up having a few too many drinks, installing Tinder, and swiping exactly one time. Matched with the first person and we started dating. Doubled down on staying in that state rather than going home. Got a RIT job for no money that ended up working out tremendously. Promoting me, sending me overseas to an amazing new country and paying off 6 figures of student debt in 3 years with money in the bank. All because I moved my finger slightly to one direction. IDK if this counts. But during the Sri Lankan civil war my dad and his family were chased out of their home and were forced to seek shelter at his cousin's house a couple towns over. His cousins only had one neighbor and that neighbor was my mom and her family. They used to meet up at the fence dividing their lawns and talk for months. One of the pictures from their wedding was them at that fence. Entering middle school. I had to choose between foreign language or music. I made my decision. My mother came into my room later that night to make sure I was certain in my choice. I chose music, which led me to pilot training, to radio, to my ex-wife, my kids, Massachusetts, twice, my new partner and a career in it. I can trace my entire adult life to a decision I made in 5th grade. My mother wore heels to work and slipped on the carpeted steps, resulting in a broken high heel and a broken leg. While she was home recovering, she somehow developed allergies that led to her needing an inhaler. The inhaler interfered with her birth control and now I have a brother 13 years younger than me. Edit. Mother confirmed that it was the penicillin that she was prescribed. If my former roommate wasn't an alcoholic going through withdrawal and had to be hospitalized, we'd have had enough money for rent. Then, I wouldn't have moved home. If I hadn't decided, while looking for a new job in my hometown, that it would be nice to have insurance, I'd have got another restaurant job instead of a manufacturing job. If I hadn't started that manufacturing job, I'd have never met a coworker who was quitting for a much better job. Then, I wouldn't have also applied for a job with that company that was still hiring. I still work here 8 years later and hope to retire from here. It has its itty days, or weeks. But the benefits are amazing and I'm making more than most college graduates. I realize that I have come full circle in being a loser. Years ago, I was a cashier in a Walmart type store and lived in a trailer park in number 38. Over a 25-year period, I went to college twice, 2 one-year programs, bought a house, got married, got divorced, sold a house, been single mom, had my own little retail business, yet never really got anywhere. I now work back as cashier in a Sobeys type store and live across the street in the same trailer park in number 48. It is incredibly disheartening to know that after all my efforts, I have gone absolutely nowhere in life. I moved to New Zealand to pursue my dream because my ex-fiancé was playing music on a speaker in public and wouldn't stop when I asked. That one incident cracked the relationship so badly it led to him breaking up then crawling back. In those 5 hours, I applied for the school I wasn't going to go to because of him. I'm now with the love of my life and couldn't be happier. In grad school I said duck it and submitted a conference proposal the night before the deadline. Long story short, I basically have my job, my city, and my wife as a direct result of that decision. Had a surprise and rough breakup and decided to treat myself to a vacation somewhere I'd always wanted to go. Loved it more than I expected. And 6 months later I emigrated there. Literally everything that has ever happened to me and 99.99999% of my ancestors is because someone decided to bone someone else. I was working a really dead-end job and my car let me down on the way to work. I was an agency worker so they can at a drop of a hat terminate my employment. They rang me up 30 minutes after I told them I was going to be late in. At that point my car was recovered and I was on my way in. To tell me not to bother as I no longer had a job there. This made me go back to college and have a goal to go to university. I graduated with honors from university and after a long time of applying and getting the knock I built up a portfolio good enough to land a graduate job. Which is doing something that I love. That has progression and will give me financial stability.